enlisted for 10 years. You were doing well. You had a course that you were on, and then you decided to become a commissioned officer and make that jump to a different ladder. How was that for you, and what challenges did you come across?
It was an interesting transition for me because, from even from Airman Basic, from E1 to E2, I didn't feel more special, but I was honored to put a stripe on, and
Yeah.
then another one, and then another one. But I never felt like that gave me any sort of superiority or, made me different. I just understood I had different responsibilities and different opportunities that were commensurate with those successive ranks. And I guess the real first awakening that a transition had happened and was expected. Certainly, they pour that into your head in your commissioning source. Mine was OTS, Officer Training School. I came back to my same base, assigned to a different squadron, and I had my silver dollar in my pocket, ready to give to some fortunate or unfortunate enlisted person.
Yeah.
And the first person I encountered in uniform, walking with my in processing folder under my arm and in my blues, was a Chief Master Sergeant, munitions chief, ammo chief, right? And the conditioning is very deep. And again, this was kind of really instructive to me. I had worked with him in the fighter squadron in the mission planning cell. He was the munitions rep, and so for exercises and operations, I stood side by side with him for mission planning. Breaking out the ATO. And so we knew each other, but he just saw a second lieutenant in blues and, reflexively saluted. And I said, Chief, let me stop you there. I said, there's this tradition. And it took him a minute to figure out who I was and who he was talking to. And he was kind of baffled. And he said, well, sir, you don't have to pay me to salute you. And I said, no, 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 no. This is a tradition. And I actually had a silver dollar, a Liberty silver dollar, that a great aunt had given me. She was an Army nurse in World War II.
Hmm.
She was stationed in England and got many of the D-Day casualties that they were able to ship up the coast there. And she died when I was a senior airman. I went to her funeral and was in the honor guard as a senior airman with my white gloves on, and she gave me a silver dollar for my first salute and her real silver lieutenant colonel rank,
Hmm.
which at the time she served was the highest a woman and a nurse could
Yeah.
achieve in the Army Reserve.
Mhm.
So those were both special traditions that I got to carry on. But that was interesting, and I thought, wow, people really do see you different. And the next really instructive thing was people thought I was pretty competent and maybe even smart as a technical sergeant, and they didn't feel the same way about my abilities seeing me as a second lieutenant. But even people who knew you, because the conditioning is so deep, the culture
Sure.
and
Yep.
everything. And so in many ways I had to start over and reestablish who I was and what my capabilities were. And that was actually good for me, because if I'd rested on my laurels and said, well, I'm a 10-year tech sergeant, there's a lot of stuff I know and can do, I'm confident I wouldn't have been as successful. I wouldn't have had the same relationships and had the same opportunities. So it was good to kind of start over in that way as an officer. And I'm grateful for people who stood by my side and watched and made sure that there were guardrails in place
Yeah.
for my development.
It's a special thing, that first salute. Uh, I remember my first salute was from my dad, who had been enlisted in the Air Force, Army Air Force, and very, very special time. So I can empathize and understand how special that must have been. So Max, what advice would you give to someone who's trying to make that move from the enlisted side over to the commission side?
Yeah, I would, probably a couple things. First of all, be certain of your motivation. Um, there are people who will in the service who will say, well, gosh, if you got a college degree and you're enlisted, you might as well be an officer. The pay's better and the retirement's better. Those are those are certainly benefits and things to think about, but that should not drive that decision to lead airmen. Um, as time went on, as a commissioned officer and leader, it became more poignant and more apparent to me increasingly that the privilege that we hold to command and serve America's sons and daughters the greatest treasure of this nation, right? Families who give up their sons and daughters to put the uniform on and serve with us, and that continued increasingly to weigh on me more heavily. The more responsibility I got, the more rank I got, the larger organizations that we had the privilege to lead and serve in. So that's kind of a telling question. I've had the opportunity both when I was still in uniform and since to mentor people who want to become officers or who want to join the Air Force, who want to enlist, is ask them simply why they want to serve and help them understand your responsibility is to lead. It's not so much that you get to go do amazing stuff and be part of a great institution, but what will your role and responsibility and contribution to that be? To walk in with that understanding. So I think that's important. And people helped me with that same understanding. Again, I had great bosses and mentors and people I worked with, again, wingmen and then people mentored me who were my subordinates, who I outranked significantly. And that's still true to this day. We're
Yep.
all in this together and it's a team sport for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.